This is Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Mitch Lafon.
Welcome to another episode of Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon, and I am your venerable host, Mitch Lafon. Yes, there you go. No co-host on this one, so let me just get right into this. Joining me on the phone, it is from the band Collective Soul, the one, the only, bassist Will Turpin. And on June 21st, 2019, they are releasing their new album, Blood. And of course, do check that out. Lead singer, by the way, Ed Roland. Ed, E-D, has decided that he wants to be known by the diminutive E. Just E. Like the TV show or the TV channel. E. I wonder if he has an exclamation point as well. Anyway, you know, of course, a diminutive, when you have a name like Richard and you want to be called Dick, well, Ed wants to be called E. Okay. Anyway, a new album is Blood, and if you're listening to it as I release this podcast, it'll be out on Friday of this week, and if you're listening to it down the road, well, it's already out. So go buy it, go check it out, head to Spotify, do whatever you do. And I have to say, you know, Collective Soul is one of those bands that played some pretty decent rock and roll. They really sort of captured that moment after hair metal. And yes, I said hair metal. There's nothing wrong saying hair metal, and I'll get into a discussion about that in a second. But you know, you look at songs like Shine and December and even Heavy from 99. Really, they're as rock songish as anything that came out in the 80s. So I don't know why people sort of like, oh, there's a difference between the two anyway. But let me quickly get back to hair metal. Boy, people all the time say, hey, Mitch, I don't like when you call it hair metal. Or bands will be on interviews going, oh, I don't like when you get hair metal. Oh, don't do that. Really? There's an entire channel on Sirius XM called Hair Nation. If you're so upset, tell them to not play your song and then not get the sync rights and the mechanical rights and the royalty rates and the whole thing. Just tell them to wipe you off that channel. Don't put us on Hair Nation. Listen, hair metal is a descriptor. And the whole point of a descriptor is to give you an immediate idea of what we're talking about. And when we say hair metal, you automatically know it's Poison, it's Warrant, and it's all those bands. Period. And if you're branding or if you, that's exactly what you want. You want somebody to know exactly what you're talking about it when you're talking about it. So all this stuff about, oh, you can't call it hair metal. Wait. Anyway, I should start the whole Mitch ranting thing. Anyway, no, I shouldn't. I'm not a ranter. But this month, end of June, going into July, I am going to run a Mitch marathon. I have about 21 interviews stacked up and waiting for people to hear. They include, here, and I'm going to go right to my files. You can hear me go to it here. They include Collective Soul. They include Connie Bloom, lead singer of Electric Boys, all hips, you know, hey. It includes David Bickler, who, of course, is the singer of Survivor and sang or was the singer of Survivor. And, of course, you know his voice from Eye of the Tiger. Who else do we got? Danko Jones and Tea Party. Interviews that I did a couple of, about a month ago. Never had a chance to air them, so I'll do like a Canadian episode, probably on July 1st. I'll put that one out. I've got Bruce Watson of Foreigner and also Ron Wixo of Foreigner. You're going, Ron Wixo? Well, yeah, Ron played in the band in the late 90s, just before they disappeared from the scene, just before Lou had his health issues, and Ron talks to me about this unreleased Foreigner album. There are songs floating around, and I have them, and they're great Foreigner songs that they were recording, and then then Lou Graham got sick, and the sessions ended, and those songs have never been used, and so Ron is going to detail that. I've also got Jeff Scott Soto, who's got a new album out. We did an interview. Robin Trower, Glenn Sobel of Alice Cooper's band, Mark Zavon, guitarist who spent some time with Stephen Piercy's solo band, not Adrenaline Mob. Boy, I'm having a whole time. Kill Devil Hill. Anyway, we got Mark, Bob Clearmountain, David Freiberg, Slim Jim Phantom, Janet Garner, formerly of Vixen with her husband, Joey Casada, who plays with the Eric Martin Band. And anyway, I've got all these interviews, and those are the ones that are done. I've got some more scheduled coming up this week, next week, and the week after. And so I've just got to blow them out. So listen, I will do this Mitch Marathon. Consider July of 2019, Mitch Marathon month, and you will get almost, because I do have a life, and I do have kids and a dog and other responsibilities, but you will almost get an episode a day for the month of July. And as you know, I've gone to this one-on-one format where it's just me and the artist. There's no more double episodes. There's no more 18 guests. There's no more 4 hours. It's me and a guest. Sometimes it'll run to an hour like I did with Holly Knight or Desmond Child or whatever. But mostly it'll be 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and that's sort of the sweet spot. So you'll be getting that. And July is going to be fun-filled. You will also get a new show on the Mitch Network. Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon presents In the Trenches with Ryan Roxy. Now that is going to be spectacular. Not that my show's not spectacular, but that's going to be spectacular. Ryan Roxy, who of course you know and love from the Electric Angels, that debut album back in, my brain is having a moment, 97, 98, whatever it was, 96 maybe. That debut album of Electric Angels, brilliant. One of the best debut albums ever. If you haven't checked it out, find it somewhere. I know it exists somewhere in the atmosphere, so go find that. But you also know him from Slash's Snake Pit, early days, and of course being Alice Cooper's guitarist. Now Ryan is going to do a show on my network where he is going to interview guys that are living the dream of being a rock star, but in the trenches. Phil X of Bon Jovi's band, who also spent some time with Triumph and also spent some time with Phil X and the Drills. And I interviewed him in May. Go check that episode out. Steve Brown, working man's working man, had his success with Trickster, and then went off and did Dennis DeYoung and did subbed for Def Leppard and worked with Eric Martin's band. And who else? Michael Starto. Oh, Michael. I know you're listening and I screwed up your name. But anyway, Michael, who was with Lou Gramm for 7 years and then is doing some dates with Mark Slaughter under the Slaughter banner and has been a rock and roll fantasy camp guy. Anyway, Joel Hoekstra, who does Cher and TSO. And it's not stories about, hey guys, tell me about the new album you played on and the new tour. It's really about being in the trenches and being a working guy and having to survive with your guitar and with your voice and with your bass and with your drums and just being, anyway, check it out when it comes out. It'll be labeled as, or it'll be known as Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon presents In the Trenches with Ryan Roxy. I will put them up. I will put the descriptors. They are starting in July too, in July as well. So you've got the Mitch Marathon, Ryan Roxy, and just a lot of interviews, a lot of content. So please stick around and help me out if you can. When you see something on the socials, retweet it, like it, or if you've enjoyed the show, go to your socials by yourself and say, hey man, I checked out this interview that Mitch did or that Ryan did. Here's a link to it, and use the iHeart link or the Spotify link or any one of the links to TuneIn, Stitcher. And if you've not noticed, I have started putting up all the interviews or the audio up on my YouTube page as well. So there's plenty of ways to listen to all this content. So go do that and share, and let's grow this as a community. And yes, here it is, the one and only pitch that I'm going to give you this time. If you want some Mitch merch, a beautiful raglan or what we call a baseball jersey, or if you want a classic black t-shirt, all sizes available, head over to loudtracks.com. loudtrax.com, loudtrax.com, and order up a shirt. And there you go. And Loudtrax is run by a guy named Nick. And Nick is the official global merchandise rep in Canada. And they do all the official merch for Anthrax and Marilyn Manson and Judas Priest and Scorpions and Iron Maiden, and even some non-rock stuff like the Backstreet Boys and all that. So it's high quality stuff. Nick does a great job. So support Nick, support me, and support Ryan Roxley when he's up here doing the Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon presents In the Trenches with Ryan Roxley. Now, a lot of gabbing on this talk up. So let's get right over to today's guest from Collective Soul. A new album is called Blood. It is W. Oh, sorry. It's the lead singer that just wants to be known as E. Will Turpin actually wants to be known as Will Turpin. But from now on, let's just call him W. Okay, let's not do that, because that's not nice. Here is the one, the only, bassist extraordinaire. He shines on bass, Will Turpin. We are speaking with bassist Will Turpin of the band Collective Soul. The new album is called Blood, out later this month. And Will, an absolute pleasure to talk to you again.
Yeah, man, cheers. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for your time, too.
Yeah, the last time we spoke was for your solo album called Serengeti Drivers, out in June of 2018. So let's give that a quick plug. But let's talk Collective Soul and new music. You know, at this point in a career, 25 years to almost 30 years in, you could certainly just go out there and do Shine and do December and do the hits and fill up a 75-minute set. Why? What motivates you to write new music, and why is it important to have a new album out?
Yeah, I mean, that's just the thing that's still playing live is definitely a driving force, and it's one thing that we thrive on. You know, if we don't play live in a while, it's something we start to crave and miss. But the other side of that coin is being able to create new music. And man, that's still just something that makes our blood flow. It's really, you know, what keeps us going. So, you know, 25 years later, when we get together, and Ed's got some amazing songwriting skills, of course. And we get together and we try to make collective soul music, and it still feels magical to us. So, like I said, that still gets our blood flowing and our adrenaline going. It's just part of being a creative artist. It
really is. So, of course, last year, like we mentioned, you did Serengeti Drivers. How do you decide for you on your writing what goes into the will pile and what goes into the collective soul pile? Do you write sort of the same way, or are you writing completely differently and it's very obvious which one goes to the solo project and which one goes to the band?
Yeah, I mean, I think the original inspirations are sometimes different, because a lot of the stuff I do with my solo material, it's going to start off with me on a piano, kind of just being more organic with the way I create some of that stuff. And then with Collective Soul, a lot of the stuff I'm going to create is going to be more, I need a drummer with me, you know, I need like a guitar riff and stuff like that. And then I can, you know, focus. I like to focus in the Collective Soul a lot on the rhythm section stuff that me and Johnny do, and make sure it sets up the song right. And like I said, with my solo stuff, I start with melody and an idea for a song. So it's kind of two different approaches, but I don't sit there and go, well, this song or that song goes here or there. They just kind of find their home naturally.
Yeah, they do, and that's sort of, I guess, what's great about it. But also, and I'll move on from the songwriting in a second, but this far into the career, do you, when you sit down with Collective Soul and Ed, or E as he likes to be called now, do you look back at the old stuff and say, okay, we have that sound, we're sort of like AC/DC, we got to make more songs that sound Collective Soul, or are you at a point in the career now where you can do whatever you want, there's less pressure from the label, there's less pressure from radio, there's less pressure from MTV, in fact, no pressure from MTV. How do you sort of approach it stylistically? Do you break new ground, or you say, hey, these fans that have stuck with us deserve a Collective Soul sounding album?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a technical question, and I don't think we approach it. I mean, we are aware of that. Like, hey, we don't want to necessarily sound any different than necessarily than the Collective Soul. We want people to recognize who it is, but we don't really think about that quite that much. I mean, we really just try to open up our ears and open up our minds to be able to understand how to make each song be its strongest on a level that's not really a technical thing. It's not a sound or anything. It's just whatever feels right, and it's kind of hard to explain, but it's basically about feeling. And when it feels right, you kind of know it, and then it's more about transcending emotion through music. So I don't really think about it on a technical basis. I think about it more of an ethereal kind of top-down kind of attitude, where, like I said, I'm trying to just service the song and serve it up, possibly to the best of our abilities.
Seems to be working
and
out.
Of course, it's always going to come out sounding in some form or fashion like Collective Soul. Ed's vocals are still on fire, so I mean, he's got a signature sound with his vocals, so that's always going to be there.
Can I ask you this? I guess sort of a silly question, but you've referred to Ed as Ed twice, and he wants to be called E now. Can you sort of explain to me what that's about and how important it is for him to be called E?
I don't know. It sounds like I don't know. For me, it's just something he put in the press release. I mean, he does appreciate that nickname, and that's what he's been putting on his guitar picks for over a decade now. It's just an E on it, and we call him E every now and then. But I've known him my whole life. So I mean, my earliest memories, I knew who Ed was. So. I call him lots of things.
Right. So, and some of it not printable. All right. The band, of course, is on tour with Gin Blossom's Now's the Time tour. Talk to me a little bit about the importance of the live performance for the band. Because I come from the school of, Aerosmith and Bon Jovi and AC/DC and Guns N' Roses and Metallica. And a lot of those bands, their albums are good, but live, it's just an incredible other beast, Metallica in particular. How important is the live show to you? And is there sort of a studio Collective Soul and a live Collective Soul, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, there really is. I mean, we don't, again, it's not maybe thought about from a technical angle, but certainly we add a little.
I'm just having a little bit of trouble hearing you, by the way.
Yeah, sorry.
There we go.
Yeah, certainly there's a difference between approaching the songs live and in the studio. But I mean, in the studio, we definitely, like I said, we got to capture that energy and the vibe that's proper for the song. And live, we're able to throw in a little more. It's not like we're playing more or trying to overplay, but you supplement the energy and the vibe by just playing things just a little different. It's definitely overanalyze or think about, but it's never going to be, for us, it's never going to be something we feel like, oh, we got to do this exactly like it was done in the studio. We don't look at that. We go out there, we still play the songs and make sure the songs are the most important factor, but they're different. Some of them, we add section, we'll even do some stuff slightly differently just because. But it's because it feels right. It's nothing we've made a technical decision on.
Which is good. A lot has been made with some of the tours these days talking about backing tracks and the importance of backing tracks and some fans feeling a little cheated by backing tracks. What is Collective Soul's approach to that? When you hear like a song by Kiss like Beth and they play the violins, of course it's a backing track and of course it's needed. What's sort of your approach to that? And is it a necessary evil? Is it something that you guys do? Or is there no place in rock and roll for stuff that's not 100% live?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I mean, it's all, when you're talking about live music and art, it's going to, at some point, it's going to boil down to a personal opinion. But Yeah, if I see a band up there and there's too much backing tracks and they're just kind of playing parts to these, tracks that are basically a session, that to me lacks a certain energy that I crave or I go to find when I'm looking for a good live band. So I feel like there's a line you can cross where you've gone too far. On the other hand, I mean, we've got some loops and stuff that we trigger. And so here's what Collective Soul, here's the thing that me and Johnny basically came up with. We've got some loops and some sounds that we want to take straight from the studio and be able to use live. So instead of playing two tracks where we feel like we are a slave to a track and we're just basically hanging in there, everything that we do is triggered live. So Johnny's going to trigger it live, and it's basically ends up being a little bit more like another instrument, although it is actually loops that'll be going on for 4-measure loops or 8-measure loops, but we're not playing two tracks, and it's always an auxiliary type sound. It's never the main meat and potatoes of what we're doing. We would never put vocals on backing tracks. We would never put guitars or anything that we do live. We would never put it on a backing track. It's not, each his own. I'm not going to cut anybody down for doing it, but that's not what live music is really predicated on. It's live music is something that's magical when it's created by the same individuals on stage, and the people in the audience are part of the magic as well. Hits the views, and then they bring energy back to the stage, and it's a full circle energy transfer, and it's real. And I think you lose a lot of that when you're just standing on stage playing to some recordings. I think it's pretty weak.
I would agree. And so if I understood you correctly, and I think I did, Collective Soul uses them as enhancements to the overall performance, but you are not cheating in the sense of piping in vocals or piping in drum parts or piping in guitars. I mean, the band is live, but there's some, if you want, parsley on the plate.
There's probably 5 or 6 tunes, right, where Johnny's going to trigger samples, but he's triggering them live. So that's also the difference. We're not sitting there playing to a recording. He's triggering stuff, and it's adding to what we're already doing, if that makes sense to you. Yes,
absolutely does. Let me just quickly ask you about the 1990s and coming up in that musical environment, because you look at sort of the 70s, it was this whole peace and love stuff, and the 80s was just wild and crazy and the Sunset Strip. And then the 90s became a little darker, a little more, some people call it depressed and stuff, but yet there was some great music made at that time. How was the scene for you? And doing these tours now with the Gin Blossoms and other bands later on, is there a sense that this music was dark and depressive, or is there a celebration going on at this point?
I'm hearing more of a celebration vibe from people. People are like, man, 90s was really one of the last great generations of great songwriters and rock and roll. So, I'm in decline my son there. That's my 15-year-old son, Jude, trying to break in on our interview here.
That's okay. I've got the dog sitting on my feet, breaking in on my side, so we're even.
So yeah, I think a lot of what went on in the 90s was in reaction to too much of the 80s. It was, 80s was, and we weren't big fans of the music that was strictly about partying, getting laid. It was all about excess and who can be the craziest and wildest. Other than some other bands that we were into, that was kind of considered alternative in the 80s. It was the U2s and REM, stuff like that we were attracted to. In excess, they were singing about real things, and I think the 90s was a little bit of reaction to too much of the let's sing about how to party and get laid kind of thing, and then so you saw people in the 90s start writing songs about real issues and real deep, deep themes. And of course the whole Seattle thing is its own thing, and it was huge, and I'm a big fan of it. And some of that was dark, but in the same breath, it's not like Collective Soul was dark. It's not like Dave Matthews was dark. It's not like some of the other great bands from the 90s were dark. There was a lot of great rock and roll going on, and a lot of different styles. So, as popular as grunge was, it wasn't. It certainly wasn't all dark. I mean, Collective Soul we're always going to have a positive spin on things, even if we're talking about a dark subject.
I agree. Well, okay, so let me ask you that, and I guess we're going back to songwriting for a second, but lyrically, does a Collective Soul song have to say something? Does it have to have a meaning, or can you have rock and roll all night and party every day?
Well, yeah, our stuff seems that Ed goes pretty deep with the lyrics. So sometimes the lyrics can be simple, but I can't imagine us doing a rock and roll party every day song, even though we do enjoy that.
How can you not like Kiss? Coming up in July of 2019, it'll be 20 years since Woodstock, 99. Talk to me a little bit about that experience, because if you look at it, musically, there was some absolutely great performances, from you guys to what Everclear was doing, to who am I thinking, Limp Bizkit and others. And yet there was that other side where it sort of degenerated into some violence, into some stuff. But overall, how do you look at the experience and that festival?
Yeah, well, I mean, we played Woodstock 94 as well. And we got to actually see a great contrast between 94 and 99. So, 94 was still on like a farm area, all grassy. It was real comfortable, lots of trees. We played on Friday night before the mud came in. It was beautiful. Us, Live played, Violet Films, Blues Traveler. King's X played on that Friday night. That's one of my biggest influences. But Friday night was great, 1994. And then fast forward ahead 5 years, and they've got a little more, the promoters have gotten a little more money hungry. They threw all the people on top of some, blacktop tarmacs, charging $3 for little bottled waters. And next thing you know, people didn't feel so comfortable. And by the time Saturday night rolls around, there's fires and some protests going on. And for us, it kind of felt that way. 94 felt great, felt like a celebration. Everybody was happy. And then 99 felt like they're lining up all the bands on big stages, and it just felt more mechanical to us. But they were both great festivals, and I think Collective Soul gets off stage, and there's a great audio and great video of our sets on both of those Woodstocks that I like looking back at every now and then and checking out the youngsters.
Oh, I absolutely love it too. And when you see the 99 performance of Shine and you just hear all those people shouting it back, it really is sort of, bone chilling. It's a great moment. I'm going to pick up on what you just said. You mentioned King's X. I have, been friends with Ty, and I've interviewed Doug many times. Talk to me about what attracts you to that band, because here's a band that has been around for ages and yet always seems to not get to the finish line. They're not the media darlings, and yet bands revere them, bands love them, and true fans of them just they're diehards. What has attracted you to King's X and also,
well, I mean, their music, absolutely. I mean, in the mid to late '80s, they were on MTV, and you're right, they were always it seems like they were always on the edge of teetering right over the break of being ultra popular. But it's just, to me, it's some of the best rock and roll ever written. It's three guys. It's heavy. It's also Beatlesy. It's also deep lyrically. Like I said, that's the kind of stuff I was attracted to. I wasn't necessarily attracted to, girls. Not that I wasn't. Not that I wasn't trying to play.
But we love Motley Crue.
I'm just saying, like, lyrically, I was more attracted to a King's X. That was deep stuff to me. The Faith, Hope, Love record is one of my favorite records of all time. And they're always reviewed by all musicians. Their musical qualities and what they did with their songs is one of a kind. And I understand exactly why musicians love them. I can't put my, the details, it's hard to describe why they couldn't break into a bigger, fan base. But man, that's always going to be one of my favorite bands of all time. And we've been lucky enough to hang out with Doug Pinnick a number of times, and we consider him a friend.
Yeah, he's absolutely great, and I don't know why they don't get to that next level, but I do think that part of it might be that their music doesn't seem to fit in nicely or easily into a genre, because sometimes I'll hear them on Sirius XM's Hair Metal or Hair Nation, and I go, well, they're not hair metal. And then
right.
you put them on like liquid metal, and you go, well, they're not death metal. Like, so it's sort of like, well, where do they go? How do we sort of package them? Anyway, let me quick ask you, because we're going to run out of time here. Drummers, the band has gone through a plethora of drummers. Talk to me about sort of changing that, and how does that affect the band and its sound moving forward? And what is it about drummers that just Collective Soul needs to change them up every so often?
Well, I mean, drummer Shane had such original sound, and he was definitely part of our sound at the beginning. And the original Collective Soul, we were extremely tight. We all grew up together in the same town. So, and things started to get different, and people grow in different areas and make different decisions. That was really that's what dictated the first move for drums. And then Ryan Hoyle was a friend of a friend in Nashville, and Ryan was a great drummer for Collective Soul, some of our best stuff. And for me, it was rhythmically, it was the way Ryan approached music was a breath of fresh air for me and him to conceptualize how we're going to deal with being the rhythm section. It was a great growth in my life musically, and a great friend. Ryan still is a great friend. Then Ryan, again, people make decisions about how they want to live their life, and touring wasn't necessarily Ryan's favorite thing to do. So Ryan decided to focus on some different stuff. And he's an amazing studio drummer out on the West Coast. He's still very successful and kicking ass. But Johnny's been with us since 2012. So we're going on a pretty good run here with Johnny. Another great friend, and another guy that I've loved exploring how to approach being the rhythm section with him. His drum style is kind of one of a kind for sure. We make him, we kind of get him in the mold we need for the Collective Soul rock drummer. But Johnny's one of a kind, and it's another just great musical relationship that I've been lucky to have. But right now, I mean, as far as it's our second record with Johnny on drums. And live, I mean, I feel like we're clipping on a high rate right now, and on a high level, man. So I don't know. It's just one of those things that happens, man. Is after 25 years, not everybody can stick in there and hang in there. So
right.
Here we are.
And 7 years in, I guess he should start getting nervous. No, I'm kidding, of course. Right.
Johnny's so funny. He still will get nervous a little bit. But, we try to make him relax.
You look at him every so often and just go, we've changed drummers before. No, anyway, just real quick, the single Shine and December. Now, I know you've talked about these ad nauseum over the years, but I want to sort of approach it differently. When you have two songs like that are sort of out of the box, instant classics, here we are 25 years later, and they sound as though they just came out this morning. There's still a vibrancy, there's still an energy. How does the record company react after that album, after those songs come out? Do they look at you when you bring the next album in and say, yeah, that's nice, boys, but we don't hear a Shine. Go write it again. Or we don't hear another December. Did that add an undue pressure? Was it sort of like a golden albatross in a sense that, yes, fans know you, and yes, there's a lot of airplay, but also, well, now we're sort of stuck having to cookie-cut Shine for the next 5 hours. How was that played out in terms of record company politics and management coming to you and saying, right, boys, now we need Shine Part 2?
Yeah, I mean, we were with Atlanta still in the heyday of record label strength and record labels controlling the industry. But the way Collective Soul came about with our relationship with Atlantic, we had a record complete when they signed us. And that record was successful. So we turned in the second record, and Jason Flom came down, but he didn't have a whole lot of input. We pretty much, it was almost like we recorded did the first record without their input, and so they kind of let us keep doing that. And then once the second record was successful, they had Collective Soul in a spot in their mind where they didn't have to focus on us. We kept just sending them successful records. So they were around and they gave us their input, but it wasn't like we watched them with Jewel, and they controlled every little step and every little thing that happened with us. It wasn't like that with us. We were a rock band, and we handed them stuff that was finished, and they were good with that. So I think it worked out for us in that regard. They didn't stick their noses in too much.
Yeah, which is good. And of course, Jason Flom, for fans that don't know, he discovered a whole bunch of people: Stone Temple Pilots, Twisted Sister, Skid Row, Hootie and the Blowfish, Collective Soul. Not discovered, but signed, I guess would be the better word. I guess I'll end on that then. Just how important was Jason to the band's success? Because this guy was, or is, I mean, he's not dead, super powerful and really had an instinct for picking out bands that were going to go to that next level.
Yeah, is more of that kind of influence. It wasn't musical as much. It was more like, I'm behind you guys. And that's, that was a big deal at Atlantic Records if Jason Flom's behind you. So he was behind us, and he supported us, and he was a good friend back then too. So yeah, that's what I would say was his strongest, help with us, was just making sure Atlantic Records backed Collective Soul.
He really was something. And I'll remind the folks, the tour with the Gin Blossoms, or at least certainly Collective Soul, runs all the way to September 1st. You guys are playing out all summer, which is great to see. And Will, thank you again. Last year we did this interview for the solo album. Now this year, Blood. And hopefully next year we will do something new with some new product, be it solo or band. Merci, as we say in Montreal.
I'm down, man. Just you go ahead, man. Let's go ahead and set it up for next year, man. I'm down.
Yeah, I'll talk to Amanda now and get it done. We'll pencil it in. But as we say in Montreal, merci beaucoup. Thank you so much. And it's great to see bands like yours having a career in music. The one and done is easy. Having a career is difficult. And so kudos to you and the guys. It's, hey, something to be celebrated.
Cheers, man. That's awesome.
Cheers.
Awesome.
Bye-bye now. Cheers. Thank you.
Bye.
You're listening to Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Rock Talk.